Howdy howdy, welcome to VTS54. This is for August 2009, and I'm your host, Keith. It's me, the dude with the ugly face and the annoying voice. Welcome to my world. We are continuing to work on this seemingly eternal project of animating using reference, a James Brown kind of inspired dance. For those of you who are new, we're just kind of tagging into some things here, kind of exploring some aspects of how I use video reference without necessarily being held captive to it, but trying to find it as a jump-off point to kind of create good things. But you can't just, copy this stuff exactly. You find the salient points in there, and you go in and you try and grab it. We have just basically worked out this part right here. We skipped this bit right there. We're gonna go from the little foot shuffle right there, and we're gonna go right into that. So he kind of just does this little jump right there. Okay. I kind of want to capture this aspect of the feet, where he's kind of up in the air, and you can kind of take a look at where we started with this thing. He does his little foot slide, his little moonwalk to the thing there. He plants, does a little spin. There's a camera cut. He does this little triple hop thing with his hips. What's doing that is right here. He comes out of his spin, which I actually cut from another James Brown clip. And here he does this little triple hop thing with his hips and pops down there. As he does that, his hands are doing their own little thing on the top. I turned off the hands because I'll kind of come back in and layer those in later. So right now you're seeing what I'm doing is I'm kind of working for the most part without the hands, although at this section up here at the front I can turn the arms on and you can really see that I've actually worked out the hands quite a bit right up through here. From this point on, though, the hands are just kind of there's just not much going on there. It's because I was working primarily on getting what I call this triangle or this tripod of importance, where you get the feet and the hips working together, so that you can get that stuff working on the overlap and the line of action in the body, and then working on quieting down the head travel, because this is all core level stuff. What you do with the hands on top of it is almost secondary. Alright, so here he's kind of coming down into this little reload. Right here he does his reload like right there, which is a little bit different than what we're doing, and he just kind of pops up and then lands right there. The reason why the reload there doesn't work for this is because there's a cut right there. There was a whole bunch of other footwork that I decided I didn't really feel like we needed to do, and so I chopped it. If you look at the timeline right here on the YouTube clip, you'll see it goes from 117, in 116, and then one frame later it's 117, and then one frame later it's 118. So there's a whole second worth of animation that I just cut out of there because I just didn't feel like I wanted to do it, and it just didn't fit the flow of what I was trying to accomplish in the scene. So that's another thing about video reference. Don't feel like you got to do absolutely everything in there. Chop it up. I mean, you're the creator here, so you can definitely do this. So we had him reload here. So I want to have him pop up in the air at this point to kind of again, just sell this thing a little bit. It pops up in the air here. And when I do that, what I like to do is kind of counter rotate this stuff so that there's a good bit of jump right there. The tricky part in a lot of this stuff is getting the hips to work the way you want. So he's up like so, and we want that sense of push right here, so I'm going to use something like that where it feels like he's pushing off with his toes. One of the ways we can kind of sell that even more is is kind of, what I'm going to do is kind of middle mouse over and then just key the feet here so that, wow, okay, that didn't work. I forgot I rotated them too. Here's something I like to do sometimes, is I just get in here and I want it to feel like he's pushing off. I don't want his toes to go slipping. So there's the ball of his feet right there. I just want to make sure that it just feels like his feet are just pushing off from right about there. Kill some of this rotation here. And use the ball of his feet just a little bit more. Maybe move him forward just a bit. So whenever you're doing a jump, it's always a pretty good idea to kind of give a sense of being planted. Now there, you just see how the feet are kind of sliding right there, so I have to work that out so that it doesn't feel like they're sliding quite so much. So one way I can do, you can hold down the W key and change your thing from object space to world space. There's a lot of counter animating going on here, but by cleaning it up, see how that foot's now feeling solid? There's a lot of counter animating going on there, but I wanted it to feel solid, like it wasn't sliding all over the place. And this toe is rotating a little bit, and it's fine if it rotates. And this one right here, I can use the toe twist a little bit too. I just want it to feel like he's pushing off from the same point in the ground. So he crunches down here. It kind of squishes up right there. Okay, so we key that. And then we want to do the one where he's in the air too, because you can't just always you don't want to do just the top key. You have to kind of create that extra key up there for the bouncing ball bit. And let me see, just take some of this business right there and straighten this out a little bit. Oops. Alright, so he's up. It can be up just a bit more. Okay, so he's doing this jump, so that's kind of like where he needs to, what he's going, something like this is kind of what we're after, and then he's going to land right there. Okay, so it's kind of where we're at, and then the landing bit, and just go ahead. Well, let me take a look at how that happens. I don't want to get locked in. We want his feet to be about shoulder width apart right here, because he's going to stand up, but he's not going to do any more work with his feet. So once some feet land, they're done. So we don't want to be too wide right here. So when they come down, we are going to just be shoulder width on these things. And a lot of that bow-leggedness comes from the knees being out. Okay, and that business can kind of sort out as he goes up. So he lands right there. And notice how when he lands, you can just do some pretty neat analysis. Watch this. I don't know if you can see it or not, but he hits the bottom with his hips, but his torso is kind of up and leaned back. Not necessarily that way. It's more like this a little bit. You know, it's back like this, And then the frame right after, you can see this overlap happening. Boom, boom. You see that? As the hips start to come up, his chest rolls forward. That is overlapping action right there. And you can kind of break it down. And so he's going to come on the way up. He leans forward with his chest. And then he leans back all the way through the top. Okay, so as he lands here, key all of that. The chest can start to, the hips start coming up. The knees start coming in. He starts hitting this kind of comfortable look right here. And as he does this, he kind of leans forward a bit. Alright, so doesn't feel like he's leaning forward a whole lot. And that's probably because he's leaning forward a little too much on this one right here, so we need to kind of break that up a little bit. There we go. He stretches up a bit right there. On the way down, stretches up a bit more. Maybe some more compression right here. Okay, so then he's forward like this with his hips, back like that with his shoulders, and then it kicks forward. There, that's what we wanted. See that? Well, we're going from this kind of a line, and it starts coming across like this. So what we're going to do is kind of push that just a little bit more. There we go. Now the one thing I don't like about this is how far forward his head comes. So again, this is one of those instances. See how that's pretty off balance? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just do that with the head. I'll cheat it. You can get away with that sort of stuff. And here he's really leaned forward as well, so I think what we can do is kind of lean him back a bit. So I kind of go through some things. As you notice, I kind of work through the feet and the hips, and then I start looking at what's happening in the body, and then I start working on cleaning up the head. And I just kind of roll through these things in order, 1, 2, 3, and then I come back, and then that's just kind of how I clean it up. And step through it to make sure it's working okay. He might be a little far back right there. Alright, so there's a good one. And then when he stands up here at the end, he's pretty much kind of just straight up, and everything's sort of starting to settle down now. And he's more like chest up sort of deal, and his head's looking up. And let's see what we can do with this foot. Toe twist it in a little bit. Oops. And then bring the knees in to make them a little bit more comfortable. Look to the side. Okay. Sometimes it's just easier to kind of zero this stuff out to make sure you're getting your character back on target. Because sometimes you can get a little crazy with these little stretchy controls. Like this one right there, there's a lot of translation going on there that's kind of making things weird. So sometimes it's just easier to just kind of zero this stuff out and then build it the way you want. Not, that doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does. Yeah, that works there. So as he jumps up, he curls over more. You see that? His hips are going up, but his head and chest are going forward this way. And then as he goes up a bit more, his hips are kind of at the top, and then his head is kind of kicking back. And then as the hips come down this way, he really leans back with his head and upper torso. And then as the hips come up, the head and upper torso come back again. It's just this overlapping action, and then he settles out. And I'm building all that in there. I'm not having to kind of go through a bunch of F-curve tricks or anything like that. I'm just analyzing what's going on in the motion and just creating it. So there's the footwork. For the most part, the footwork for this dance is done. From this back portion where he does this little spin, kick out, little hops. Okay, so there you have it. It's a lot of drawings. I mean, that's 50 drawings to create this dance. Now we got to do stuff with the arms. We may or may not need to put another drawing in here. I don't think we do, because the more active part of his body on this particular dance is the footwork. And so you start thinking about it, that's 50 drawings. Okay, that's pretty hefty. But how long is this going to end up being? If we take a look at this, we're looking at this thing's going to be, I can't see. Right here it says it's about 6 seconds long. 6 seconds is, let's do some basic simple math here, right? The basic math of 6 seconds is 24 frames per second times 6. And my kid stole my calculator again. There you go. I'm probably not the only one who has kids come in and steal your scissors and tape and calculator. So that's 144 frames. We've just now made 50 drawings. Okay, so we've pretty much put in 1/3 of all the drawings necessary to make this piece of animation. It seems like a lot, and it is. This is not typical. Most of the time I'm used to blocking out about 20%, 20 to 25% of all the frames will end up being blocked out to a certain degree. And even so, when you stop and think about that, this is going to make cleaning it up easier. I may think, man, we've been spending a lot of time on this blocking business, but let's break this down and talk about it for a minute. If we're going to, on a typical scene, let's say we do 25%, okay? So if a scene is 100 frames long and we've put in 25 keys, that means there's only 75 frames for the computer to figure out an in-betweens. And the average distance between them is going to be 3 frames. So the average distance between my drawings on the entire 100 frame scene is going to be 3 frames. That means the computer only has to figure out how to get from point A to point B down the line 3 frames at a time. That's actually not bad. The computer can do a pretty decent job of that. I mean, the ultimate is the computer doesn't do anything. You would key in 100 drawings, and that's the way it is. That's what you would do, hand-drawn animation. But computer, we have the computer as our in-betweener. So we're asking it to do pretty much just 3 in-betweens at a time. If you're pretty good at defining your stuff, the computer's going to do an okay job with it. Now you just got to go through and kind of clean up some of the junk and make sure the movement's a little bit smoother. But for the most part, you're not going to go from a blocking that's like, oh, it works, it's got snap, and then you switch it all over to linear. It's not going to do this bad robot dance kind of thing, because you've given it so much information to work with. The key is to make sure the information works well. Okay, you don't want to just throw junk in there. I've spent a lot of time making sure that the stuff plays well together, because I want the head to be fairly simple. I want the curves to work in the body. I want the footwork to work. I want it to have the right kind of weight in the hips. And if you have all that stuff worked out, it ends up being quite a bit easier to work with. There's some aspects even in here I still don't like some of the business going on with the hips. And something tells me if there's any part of the animation that's going to need more cleanup after I start in-betweening it, it's going to be in this section here, where this little foot shuffle business. I'm not really big fan of it. I mean, I was kind of going off the reference, but I didn't like what I was working with. I may end up making this a lot simpler. I may make these keys, actually I'm probably going to play around with it right now. I'm going to make this a little less extreme because for as extreme as it is, it just doesn't feel like the weight is proper. It doesn't feel like it's got the right kind of weight. So like that right there, it just doesn't feel like it's got, just doesn't feel like it has good weight. Like that's just off too much. It just feels weird. So I'm going to make this more shuffling than strutting. Yeah, that feels better already. So maybe this guy can come out here a little bit. And do something like this, and maybe just do this ball toe business right there where there's a bit more heel. Right there to there. A little too much slip. See how it kicks in right there? So I could fix one drawing here, or I can fix 1, 2, 3, 4 drawings there. I'm going to choose to fix the one right here where it just feels a little bit off, a little bit weird. There, it's a little better. Maybe kick this one over a little bit. But when you do it, you know, if you try to fix 4 of them, you end up creating a lot of noise that you're going to end up having to clean out later on. So there, just fix it so it doesn't slide as much from there to there. And this is the one, this is the little bit right there that I want to work with. And I'm really focusing to make sure that foot isn't sliding, because sliding feet in CG is, especially if you're trying to do stuff that's fairly naturalistic, you end up with something that just looks weightless. There we go. Alright, so I've settled this down quite a bit. And the jump right here feels a little pushed. So what I'm going to do is something like this. No, that feels like he's just floating off the ground. So I'm going to push that even more. Yeah, we might need a drawing between 46 and 47 because we need. He just feels like he's coming down, and there's no overlap at all. You know, he's just kind of hitting and bouncing off the bottom there. So what I want to do is I want to put another drawing in here. The thinking is that I want to make sure that whenever I build these things, I can just spread this stuff out. I mean, as it is, I'm only going to be asking the computer to do about 2 frames of in between each one of these drawings. So it's almost animating straight ahead. With reference, with a very complicated thing, sometimes that's just the way you got to go. I know that people have this idea that, you know, I'm like the pose to pose king. I don't do anything except really loose. But you know, you can't lock yourself into an ideological box. If you do that, you end up kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage, because you end up, instead of just trying to make the motion work, you end up trying to make your making a point, you know, by doing things a certain way. So what I'm going to do is between here and here, between 47 and 48, I need another drawing. I don't want to lock myself into a box, so I'm just going to go ahead here, and what I'm going to do, There's a couple ways you can do this. Probably the simplest one for me is to take this key right here and duplicate it back. Okay, and then I can just make the hips a bit more like they were the previous key. Okay, so the hips are way up here. So do this, and what do we get if maybe we just get something like that going? There we go. And that allows us to maybe even get these feet up a little bit more and do a little bit more with them right there. You see that? And that little extra definition gives it some weight. It's going to have to get in there sooner or later, so I prefer sooner. And everything going on with the body and stuff like that, it's just a straight in between from here to here. You know, the computer's doing an okay job with it. What I might do is just kick this back a little bit to kind of create a little bit more of that overlap. So I might just bring him forward there and bring him back there to kind of push that reversal right there. Okay, so the reversal on the hips is working. Now what I want to do is kind of maybe push the overlap on the head a little bit. So he's up. Maybe right here we just put his head down a little bit. Up. And then that reversal's right there. But I think what we'll do is his head's kicking back just a bit too far. So right there, his head's back just a little too far, so I'm just going to rotate this forward a bit. There we go. And here his head's kind of rotated too far forward. I don't want it to feel like he's getting whiplash from his own move. I just want him to have a sense of weight. Okay, so there you go. The footwork, the hip work is done. Now let's go back and take a look at how we can do stuff with these arms. Since we've already got the stuff worked out that we need to for the body, we can kind of take these arms, and they're all keyed because I keyed everything at the same time. I can kind of hit the highlights and kind of backfill. Let me kind of explain that. You know, I've got the left foot, I've got the right foot, I've got the hips, and then, you know, the torso and head. And then I'll have, you know, the right arms and the left arm. Well, right now what I've done is I've set keys, you know, on all of these things like this. You know, I've kind of filled them, I filled it in completely. The thing, you know, if you look at the dope sheet, this is what you'll end up looking like. But the thing is, these keys down here that I've made aren't doing anything. They're just kind of marking the spot. So what I'll do is I'll blow these away. You know, I'll take all of these and get rid of them. And I'll just say, okay, now I had to make the keys on the hips and all these other things. I had to make these keys because that was driving the motion. So those are all there for a specific reason. I may not need to set a key for every one of these things in that same sense. So what I might do is just say, well, I just need a key here, here, and here for that arm, and here, here, and here for that arm, and just let the computer fill that one in. I'll go back and I'll key it, but I'm not going to do anything with it. Maybe I'll probably just let the computer do what it wants if it's doing a good job. That's the plan going in. We'll see how it looks when I'm done. Okay, so he comes up here. Now one of the things we have to remember is that he's got this little, as he comes up, he's got this little arms go out, and he does this little weird chicken flap thing twice. Okay, so it circles out, makes a big circle in, and goes like that. So let's define that. Somewhere right here, on the way out, he's making a big flap. So I got to get this stuff kind of feeling comfortable with his body here. Get that elbow up, get that shoulder up. He kind of leads with his elbows. Well, one of the things I'm going to do, which I forgot to do, is I'm just going to go ahead and delete all these keys from... I want that one, but I don't want that one, so I'm just going to delete that key in the arms. And I kind of want that one, but I don't want that one or anything after it. They're all not doing me anything. So I'm just going to delete them. So this is going to be I'm going to animate this a bit more like people are used to seeing things animated on a computer, where you just kind of work your way through it. Right? In this instance, he's kind of leading with his elbows. And this one may be back a little bit too far. We want good drawing principles here as you try to avoid weird tangencies. Okay, so he comes through and he comes up. Now let's study here for a second. Let's see about this. And the first bounce down, so let's see, up, and then the first bounce down, his hands are up over his head. So on the way up, he's like that, and on the first bounce down, the hands are up. So that means the elbows are reversed, the hand is up, and it's making that little sweep. Okay, so this one, elbows down, hand is up, it's making this sweep. I'm probably creating gimbal problems later on, but I can fix those. Those aren't that hard to figure out. So as he comes up, and let's see, the circle over finishes under on the second bounce. So they come up, and he's up in the air, and his hands are straight across, his hips are up, and then his hips are down here, and his hands are kind of turned over, and then they start coming back up again. So he does a big circle, and his hips go down and his hands hit down at the same time. This guy's amazing when you stop and think about this stuff, how he makes it all work. So as he comes up and comes down, that's when the hands are kind of down and in, and the elbows are back up again. And it's this kind of a look right here. Okay. It comes in, and again the elbow is going to be up. Something like that. Now as he's going up in the air, he kind of hits up there, and as he's down, the hands are like that, and then as he's coming up, maybe we can just leave his hands up in the air a little bit right here, just kind of build a little bit of a hold. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to well, probably should get rid of the shoulder keys too. Give myself a clean palette to work with there. So take the hands, the shoulders, and all that business. He's up in the air. Let's go ahead and build a hold there. The easiest way to do that is middle mouse over, and then either take the frame before it and cheat it back, or take the frame after it and kind of build it up. In this instance, I'm going to take this frame and cheat it back a little bit. Maybe have his hands drag a little bit, maybe have the elbows up a little bit, just to kind of give it some place to go. Okay. And then on the way down, there's something happening here where I want the hands to kind of drag. I don't want them to kind of lead the way down. So in this instance, I'm just going to have them kind of be up a little bit, have the elbows down a little bit more, just to kind of create that flopping thing going on. So as they come up, I want them to drag pretty well. I want them to give good strong drag here. And then I can just drag them up a little bit more too right here. Because it's all about creating that flow. There we go. He's kind of creating a flop right there. And take this one and pull it down too. There you go. And take this guy and pull it back. Oops. Take this guy and pull it back. I can do more with the fingers. I'll put those in, you know, later on. But for right now, I like what's going on here. Up, up, down. Okay. That's pretty good stuff right there. This is a good place to save what I'm doing, because it's always a good place to save what you're doing. Okay. Okay, so we got that part filled in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go backfill a little bit right here, because there's some keys right here where I'm just kind of letting the computer do its thing from here to here. I'm just going to go ahead and, just for fun, just key that, because I know that that's going to work for me. And I'm going to go all the way up to 38 and just key everything. Just to, again, to make sure there's no holes in any of the keys, because when you start timing this stuff out, you really don't want it to be, well, I shouldn't have gone to 38, it was 33. I'm a dork. I can't read numbers. That's my problem. Delete these. Anyways, the idea here is you don't want any things where you expect it to look this way, and then when you spread it out, stuff's sliding. If you key it, it won't. That stuff doesn't happen. Okay. So on the second hip down, his hands are down. Alright, so we've matched that part pretty well. And then there's like this little tiny double dip right here that's so hard to see. But really the essence of it is it goes like this, and then it goes out. Okay? And that's on the big kick out right there. So he's out kind of like that. We'll do something sort of like that. Let's get the big kick out and kind of work out what that's going to look like. We're going to jump ahead. We're going to do this a little more pose to pose and not quite so straight ahead. Alright. So we're jumping ahead here to the pose of him down, and then we'll kind of backfill a little bit to kind of get it the way we want. And I'm doing it on the second down pose because that's the end of the move, really. That's when things are kind of settled out. I can use this first one where his hands are still up in the air a little bit and kind of borrow some space. So as he goes from here, it goes straight down, but we don't want that. Remember, it kind of comes up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just bring the hands up and flatten it a little. And then we want them to be up even higher on this one. So just to create a little bit more of that. And let me just check real quick here, see what his elbows are doing here as he does this. His elbows stay up pretty much the whole time. I mean, I have them dropping down a little bit in through here, but they stay up. So I think it's pretty important that his elbows stay up through this whole process. And get his shoulders up too. And right here is a great place for that drag and overlap thing to happen. Instead of having the hands just kind of go, you know, from point A to point B in a linear fashion, this is a great place to kind of build in right there. You can probably just take these IK hands and these things, middle mouse over, and key it, and then from there just kind of start cheating it down while still having that good overlap in there. There you go. So he comes up, he does a swing out, he does the swing in. Now I don't do a very good job with that circle because this key right here needs to be more like this. This one needs to be more like this. Something like that. There, I want it to feel more like it's coming in. So it's circling in. And the same with this hand right here. Let's go ahead and make it feel like it's circling out. Then coming in and dropping. The only thing with this one is it feels like it's kind of just going straight in. So he comes up. And this is a good place to kind of track your arcs. Well, let's use the color we can see, Keith. So let's try, I don't know, let's see if black works. Yeah, that works pretty good. So I'm just tracking the arc on this wrist to make sure that it's circling the way I want it to circle. See how it kind of just stops right there? It's creating a hitch. I want it to slow down up here, but I don't want it to stop in place. So I adjust it there. And then as it's coming in, it's just kind of coming straight down the line. So I'm going to use a different color here as it comes down. And see this? It doesn't circle. It just kicks underneath. And I don't like that. See how it's rounding up. It's going up nice and round, but then it does this on the way in, and we don't want that. We want this on the way down. So taking a look at my little marks right here, which one do I need to fix? This one. Bring it over here because I can bring this mark like that, and I can create that nice down thing. And this one too, if I bring it over here, just kind of drag the hand like this, now I'm creating a smoother circle. And that totally works. I don't have as much of a problem on the other side, but I'm going to go ahead and track that one too because we might have some problem over here. And again, I'm going to have to fix this sooner or later, so let's do it now. And when I throw it over into linear or whatever, the computer's not going to, it's got information to work with. And it can work intelligently instead of just kind of farting its way through things. Alright, so this one actually isn't as clean as I thought it was. So I want this one to be circled out a little bit more. And this is where you can't become a slave of your reference. Because if you become a slave of your reference, you can't see macro issues like this. And if you can't see these issues, then you have problems. And stuff starts to really not work as well as it could. So you have to be the animator here. You can't just be a copier. You got to be an animator. So what's that look like? He swings out of here. They swing up and out and over and then snap in. Then they come up and he snaps down. Alright, so that's a good place. Hit another save right there. Looking at it some more, let's take a look at our business here with the hands and stuff on this. We have this sort of deal where his hands kind of kick up on the side. This is my previous analysis of the scene from some time ago, back when we started this mess. But the idea here is that his one hand, his right hand, is kind of off to the side up high, and then he kind of tucks it behind his back here, while his left hand kind of eventually ends up like this when he's down, and then he kind of rises up and does this. So again, looking at this from the standpoint of kind of building in the high points, what I want to do is kind of get to that point where he's down like this, He does some stuff. And when he's down like this again, I want to have that hand kind of in the back. So this hand back tucked behind him. And we'll go ahead and get his elbow out here. Out here, that is. Okay. Get the shoulder to play with that. And then get this hand down underneath and get this elbow out here as well. And do this little kind of serving the platter sort of deal. And then as he rises up, this being roughly the last pose, and you kind of do this sort of deal right there. And this hand could rise up with him from, it's kind of in that small of his back right there, so we can kind of bring it up here and do something like that with it. Alright, so there's a lot of business right here in between. You're like, well, what does he do? Well, taking a look at it, is he kind of comes down and his hands just kind of do this little jump thing right there. So we'll build that in. Okay, this little bit right in here. He also does this kind of strut bit. So since we kind of cut short some aspects of this, I want to kind of get right into the strut and just kind of start building that out, because I think that's probably going to be a better way to go. Don't want to get too crazy with some of the other stuff. Let's see, get that stuff out. I have to make it look good from this particular angle right here. So the thing about the strut is the hands are kind of high. And they kind of have the knuckles up sort of deal. So something like this. So he can come and do this. And then as he's forward like that, we can kind of reverse these hands. So this one could be back more. And this one could be forward more. And kind of kicked over. Okay, not quite so much like that. And get this elbow here. And get rid of that nasty tangent right there on that one. And work that in like this. Alright, so he does this little bit of a walk business right there. Probably punch this forward even more right here. And punch this back even more. And then right here he can kind of go into this little, this kind of anticipation. This is where I'm going to kind of make it up a little bit. But I'd like to have him kind of come out here like this. And we can kind of build this anticipation in like so. And then he can kind of launch up with the hands. Let's see, the hand's too far back, so get it forward, get the elbow up, get this one up and out, and Get this up. Doody doody doo. Just trying to build some good energy to it. And as he's up in the air here, we can kind of keep him out too. It's like his hands sort of lead him off the ground. And then right here, this one can kind of kick out a little bit more as it starts to swing back. And he's got to start turning it around to tuck behind his back the way we're looking at it. And when he lands right here. And he's going to hold that actually. When we get to timing it, we're going to have to stick another pose in there or another drawing to kind of hold that thing, and then he can kind of rise up. I could build it now, but I'm going to wait till I get all the hands and stuff in there, and I'll build it after I kind of time it out a little bit, because I think that it'll just be easier to build it then. Sometimes it's easier to build it now, sometimes it's just easier to wait till everything's in there. Okay, and there's a little subtle shimmy as he comes up. If you watch, there's a little bit of a wiggle right there in his shoulder and his heads. He's only got the one. And you could break it down. He's leaning screen right there, and then he kind of, as he starts to come up, he leans kind of, it's more straight up, but it's screen leftish. And he's almost all the way up. He's screen right again, and then he's all the way up. So we can build that sort of stuff in now or later, between here and here. I have a key here anyways, so what I could do, as he's right here, we could just kind of start to lean him in a little bit. And as he starts to come up, maybe lean him back left a little bit more. And we kind of have that built in there. And there's going to be one between 50 and 51 where he's kind of to the right again. Between here and here, there'd be another place to kind of build in something. But that's something we'll kind of kick in later after we get it timed up. But I want to kind of build that little bit of a wobble in as he goes. So one way to kind of build that is to kind of counter rotate the head. So that there's a shift in the body, but it doesn't feel like he's, real stiff or something. But we got the hands working out pretty well. Let's see, drops them in, brings them up. Now we don't have a lot of keys between here and here. We don't really have a breakdown that's working here. It's just going linear from here to here. Somewhere in here I want to give this a little bit more snap, so I'm going to give this a little bit of a breakdown right here. So it snaps up a bit. I mean, not a ton, but I want it to give it a little bit of life right there, so it doesn't just go linearly up. And then when he goes back here too, it's just going straight back. So I want to give it just a little bit of an arc under. And then as it swings back, kind of kick it back up. I want to make a nice clean arc like that when it swings back a little bit. Not a deep arc, just a shallow one. Down, up and back, and then up and back still. Alright, and then when he when he comes down here again, it's just a straight linear, so I'm going to give this just a little bit more zip as well. We can probably drop this in, kick it out right there. And maybe right here is a good place to kind of build this, because what I'm trying to do is creating a narrower shape. As he comes down like this, you bring the elbows in so that when he jumps up they kick out, so you kind of collapse in, creating that contrast to shapes. So he's collapsed in there. We'll probably take this one here and do the same sort of deal with it. Kick it out there some more, give it a little bit more sass. And start to lead it back in and really close it down right here. So then when he goes out, there's a real strong pop right there. You could probably even kick that hand out a little bit more and create a little bit more of an arc like this. And taking a look at the arcs of this again, I want to take a look at this hand where, well, Carlo, we can see right there, and it comes out real wide right there, and it comes up right here, and it starts to come back down again right there. Jeez, I can't see that at all. Okay, and then it starts tucking in behind. It kind of does this sort of number, and I don't really like that. I want it to kind of swing around in higher. So somewhere like this, I'd like to see things work, where it swings in a little bit more like that. So all I have to do is adjust my little arc dots the way I have them. It's a lot cleaner that way. Doesn't make as much noise. And I can do the same thing with the other hand too, where it comes in, as it comes down right here, this guy swings back, nice arc there, then he's coming down. So let me mark this right there, and then coming down right there. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Can you see this? It's kind of annoyingly bright. Let's do this. That shows up. Okay. Alright, so there is way down here and then shooting way up. So the arc down there is fine, but the kick back up is pretty extreme. And it's not really arcing much, and then it's just jamming back in again on this way down. So everything going on right here is all constrained. You see it's all constrained in this very narrow area. So it's doing this. Well, sorry. It's doing this, and this, and this, and it's all jammed in there, and it's all going back and forth on itself, and it just doesn't have any flow. So what we want to do is give this just a little bit more, just give it a little bit more life. When it comes up here, I think that's just too far up. So take this and we'll just kind of move it over here. When it comes up here, drop it down. And again, we'll kind of create more of this circular pattern here. There, that works much better. And I can actually do some stuff with the fingers right here later on to kind of give that a little bit more flexibility. Yeah, that works much better. The hands are they're now quieter. And that's what I'm using these extra keys here for, is to really just kind of clean up what the computer's doing. Since I had to work this stuff out for the feet and the hips anyways, I'm just going to take advantage of it and really just have some fun with it. And take both of these and right here just set a key and make them a bit like before, so that there's some nice drag here as he comes up. You can probably make this one a bit more like the other one, so we don't have them coming up at the same speed. Okay. Make them more like that one, so it has a little bit of a snip right there. And this right here is just coming in too directly. So get the tangent off a little bit, get a little bit of a drag right here so that the hand has some drag. Alright, dragging a bit as he comes up, snaps over, and then on the way down, just clear that silhouette tangency so it's not quite so harsh. But now it's kind of, if we track the hands right here, it's kind of popping out. And then coming down right here. So it's creating an out arc like that. But it kind of created an out arc on the way up, and then like that. That could kind of work. Let's see, as he brings it up. But I just don't like it. It could work, but I don't like it. So I'm just going to do a little bit of an under arc like this. And to me that just feels better. Don't ask me to give you a scientific explanation because I can't. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to basically key through all of this business on all the controllers so I have no holes, and just take a look at the whole thing from start to finish. And let me make it nice and big so you can kind of see it. I'm pretty much, this is all the drawings I need to kind of define this thing. There's some aspects of it that still need some cleaning up, but that's the basic idea right there. As he starts, he does his little knee knock slide, and he does his little shuffle moonwalk thing. He does the plant, does the counter rotation, and then the big spin around. Finishes the spin, holds that for a bit, kicks over here, and then on the kick comes up and does his little hip bounce. And as he does his hip bounce, his hands do this little flap thing. I think that can maybe kind of come over a little bit more, so it reads a little bit more like a flap. And then it can kick a little bit more right there to make it read as a flap. And then he comes up, does his little shuffle, and a little serve the platter jump. Okay, so there you go. This is, after who knows how many months, I've lost track. This is the basic building blocks of how he's going to do his little deal here. Okay, again, 51 drawings is a lot for something like this, but you know, it's really complex. There's a lot of things going on in here. I mean, I could just play this thing, and you'll get a really strong sense of the thing crashing is what you'll get a strong sense of. But you know, there's just a lot of stuff going on here, and it's happening really fast. So sometimes it's just what's required. You know, sometimes you just have to really push it and get in real deep on what you're trying to do, and you know, have some fun with it. So what we doing next month? Oh my gosh, we're not going to be blocking anymore. We're going to do timing, and we're going to start filling it in, and we're going to time it, and we're going to get it to linear next week, and you're going to see just what kind of payoff you get by taking your time, going this deep into your blocking, going this deep into your building your drawings, because there's that stage with every animator where they struggle with, it looks like crap, it looks so good in my blocking, but now it just looks so bad. Why does it look so bad? It's because you didn't give the computer enough information to work with. In this instance, we gave the computer tons of information to work with. It will look okay-ish. It will still need polish, it will still need work, but it's going to get to the point where like, dang, that's pretty cool. So there you go, that's it for this month, and then we'll get you next time, okay?
I feel nice, like sugar and spice.